Eagles, of course, celebrated their Super Bowl victory on Friday in that parade. Attracted more than 1 million folks. You saw Saquon Barkley, Offensive Player of the Year, first season there in Philly. Already, though, has his sights on running it back.
You know, I said after the game, why can't our dynasty start now? Probably had a little bit of champagne and other stuff in my system at the time, but you really can't focus on that. You just got to enjoy the moment. It's hard to win one. You want to find a way how you can hold that Lombardi up again and do it all over again. So you take it in, you cherish it, you enjoy it, you appreciate the fans, but the dynasty thing, you can't really get caught up in that. The way you do that is by putting the work in.
Okay, at least he admitted he had some champagne in the system. Like Biggie used to say, when you had that Remy in the system. What do you think about the dynasty talk?
No, I mean, I think if you listen to what he said, I think he's saying exactly the right things, right? Like, you can't be thinking about, can we be a dynasty? All you can be thinking about is, let's put in the work so we're in the same position next year that we were just in and able to take advantage of it. Saquon Barkley's about all the right stuff. I mean, like his message is the one the Eagles need to embrace when they get back together this spring and this summer. The fact that we just won it isn't going to help us win it next year. Now, look, it's a team that's been in the Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 years. They know how to sort of navigate, a shorter off season, all that kind of stuff. They're built to win. But, I think he recognizes that none of it happens without, an entire year's worth of hard work, just like the one they just had.
He talked a lot about being obsessed over that hard work. So, Harry, what must the Eagles be obsessed with if they want that long-term success of reaching the Super Bowl again and getting there?
The process. And I think the first thing for the Philadelphia Eagles going into 2025 is realizing that the way things were in 2024, it's not going to happen like that next season. You're going to get everyone's best shot. You're the champions. Everyone wants to dethrone you. But also, I think injuries play a part in this. Mm-hmm. Can you remain healthy as a football team? We've seen the San Francisco 49ers dismantled because of so many injuries this past season. And that's a team that went to the NFC Championship game and went to Super Bowl after Super Bowl. So for them, it's understanding that, hey, just because we did it a certain way in 2024 was successful, it's not necessarily how it's going to be in 2025. You're going to have guys that's on this roster right now that's not going to be on the roster the following year. So once you understand that and have that mindset, I think you can start that quest to try to repeat.
Obviously, they had the biggest free agent signing last year when they went and got Saquon Barkley. Cindy, if you can bring up this list of the free agents, when you talk about the Eagles, they got 10 of 11 stars on offense coming back here. You look at some of the names here, Sweat on defense, Vaughn, those guys. Sam, who should the Eagles prioritize, in your opinion, bringing back if they want to run this thing back, so to speak?
It's quite literally the biggest guy on the screen, at least name-wise. It's Mekhi Becton, the offensive guard, moved from tackle, moved to guard, and led this #1 rushing attack in the entire NFL. When Saquon Barkley ran behind Mekhi Becton, he averaged 7.1 yards per carry. And oh, by the way, nobody ran the ball more than the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe there was a stat out there that said they ran the ball. They had more rushing yards than passing yards this year. First time a team's done that since 1975. And so if you're going to prioritize anything, defense will be fine with Vic Fangio, but make sure you keep that offensive line intact and make sure to re-sign Mekhi Becton, the dominant all-pro right guard.
A first-round pick of the Jets, a guy who they gave up on. They thought he was a bust, injury-prone. Who do you think they ought to prioritize?
So I'm going to go with linebacker Zach Bond, and Himbo gave me this stat. He was the best linebacker last season, according to EPA, in coverage. And you see him right there with that interception in the playoff game, but also he was second versus the run and getting run stops. Zach Bond is a guy that they signed for the New Orleans Saints. You think he's just going to be a guy that's going to be on special teams. He worked hard. Vic Fangio had a great plan for him as well, all-pro, and came up huge for the Philadelphia Eagles this past season.
Howie Roseman is probably the best when it comes to the draft.
He got both those guys, Bond and Becton, on the cheap. Right? So you could re-sign them both. They're going to need good money now, but he's going to have to find somebody else on the cheap at another position to make up for that, and he's very good at it. Okay. You're absolutely right. Speaking of the Eagles with Darius Slay, on the offensive side of the ball, they lost Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator. He's now the new head coach of the Saints. They will need a new offensive coordinator. They're just sort of sobering up from last week, so they haven't really done any interviews yet. One of the strong internal candidates on the staff is Kevin Patullo, but they will open the search up beyond, obviously, their own walls and bring in some more folks for interviews here in the coming days. Combine's next week. So they're going to want to get this figured out pretty quick.
Well, let's stay with the Eagles because they celebrated their Super Bowl, of course. And what was it, like more than 1 million people came out on Friday for that parade. Saquon Barkley, offensive player of the year, his first season there in Philly. And you know what? Even though it's just been one season, he's already got his sights on running it back and being back-to-back champions.
You know, I said after the game, why can't our dynasty start now? Probably had a little bit of shit pain and other stuff in my system at the time, but you really can't focus on that. You just got to enjoy the moment. It's hard to win one. You want to find a way how you can hold that Lombardi up again and do it all over again. So you take it in, you cherish it, you enjoy it, you appreciate the fans, but the dynasty thing, you can't really get caught up in that. The way you do that is by putting the work in.
Okay, so Saquon says dynasty. What says you, Gross?
He said dynasty, but then he said a whole bunch of other stuff that was a lot more important.
In the system?
He's working a shift at a fast food restaurant the week he won the Super Bowl. This guy is about the nitty-gritty. He's about the work. So that's what he's saying. Like, yeah, you can talk about dynasty if you want, but we know this is going to be a new year and a different year with different challenges, and we have to put in the work if we want to get back there. The Eagles have a lot to do. We've talked about the guys they might lose to free agency on defense. Mekhi Becton on the offensive line. They had a great year in terms of health. I think I saw 21 of their 22 Week 1 starters played in the Super Bowl. So, every year is different, and they know that. And while he said dynasty, he immediately admitted that he was drinking champagne when he said it, possibly intoxicated, and he went on to say all the right things.
Yeah, he did say that. Obviously, he's obsessed with Cane's chicken tenders. They're no joke. What else does he need to be obsessed with, especially if these guys want some long-term success?
I think the entire process of understanding that the way things were in 2024 is not going to be the way things are in 2025. Garage, you just pointed to that. Right. I think also when you look at this football team, when you look at the 22 starters on Super Bowl Sunday, they only had 3 guys that were 30 or older. Mm-hmm. That was Lane Johnson, Dallas Goedert, and Darius Slay Jr. So this was the youngest defense in the NFL as well. They played very, very well. Being able to kick Vic Fangio is a key component. Now, you're going to have to replace the offensive coordinator. And the last time we seen them do that, it didn't fare well in 2023. So I think that's one of the most important things as well. But you have to become obsessed with the process. You're thankful for winning the Super Bowl, but you can't be satisfied. You have to be greedy. You got to want more. It's already hard as hell, man, to win one. Now, you're trying to repeat when everyone's trying to knock you off that throne. That's extremely harder.
Yeah, all right. So you talked about the core group of these guys. I think they got 10 of 11 offensive starters coming back. Take a look here. When you talk about the free agents for the Eagles here, they're the offensive guys, defensive guys. Sam, when you look at this list, who should the Eagles prioritize in bringing back?
The Eagles should prioritize bringing back Mekhi Becton, the 6'7", 360-plus pound right guard, former tackle. The reason why is that he's a dominant player when it comes to the run game. Every time Saquon ran behind Mekhi Becton, he averaged 7.1 yards per time he touched the ball, running the ball behind Becton. So I think that's piece one. Piece number two, the Eagles' success came behind their running game. No one attempted to run the ball more often than Philadelphia. They were number 1 in rush attempts. And so if you want to have sustained success, you keep your DC and Vic Fangio, but you keep that offensive line intact and re-sign Mekhi Becton.
Hey, look, sometimes coaching matters there. Becton's a guy, first-round pick in the Jets. They thought he was a bust. They got rid of him. They thought he was injury-prone. Eagles got him on the cheap, switched his position, and it paid off for them. Harry, what do you think when you talk about prioritizing?
So I'm going to go Zach Bond, the linebacker, the guy who made All-Pro. You talk about a guy that was great in coverage, but not only great in coverage, but second in the National Football League in run stops. So Zach Bond is a guy that was a hidden gem for them. Shout out to Howie Roseman. We know how great he's been from a general manager standpoint. So Zach Bond is a guy I feel like they must sign back.
What do you think? You said Howie Roseman. Give me your final word here.
Well, look, I mean, Bond and Becton, you mentioned, were guys they got cheap last year because they looked at them and said, well, they're not making it where they are. What would they be for us? So if they re-sign Mekhi Becton and Zach Bond, they're not going to get them as cheaply as they got them. So they got to find at other positions next year's Zach Bond and Mekhi Becton. That's how you sustain this success. You get contributions from guys that you don't have to pay big cap charges to.
Listen.
How's it going, everybody? Villa Sports Network here. Just want to thank you guys for your support on the channel. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Also want to kind of remind you to don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on the video if you like as well. But regardless of the fact, thank you again for your support, and hope to see you on the next video.